there's a quick look at what Alberta looks like from an electricity point of view. Even though we think of North America as a very gridded, interconnected network, Alberta is effectively, in many ways, an island. It has connections into the United States, BC, and Saskatchewan, but they're relatively small. And we're at the end of the line in terms of this part of the continent that's connected. We have a fairly large supply of generation. We're seeing that generation being refreshed. And we're seeing a transition. If I did this presentation 2 years ago, the percentage of coal would have been greater than the percentage of gas. So from an energy point of view, we're still seeing most of the energy from coal, but that is transitioning to more gas-based. We're going to see a significant decrease in the percentage of electricity that's generated from coal in Alberta. This is from the ISO 2013 long-term plan, and a decrease in the amount of electricity that's coming from traditional coal. So this switch from coal to gas.
So first, Alberta is the only jurisdiction in Canada and one of only 2 in North America to have an openly competitive electricity market. That's pretty stunning. As Bill mentioned, work toward this began in 1998 when the provincial government decided to restructure the electricity market. A key part of this transition was to allow the private ownership of the province's generation facilities and to attract private investment into new generation facilities. The investors, not the government, the investors were able to decide what type of generation technology to build, where it was to be built, and when. And they built it. From 2001 to 2014, Alberta's power supply increased by 50%, and our wholesale prices fell by 30%. This is nearly impossible in a regulated market. Generators built wind and hydro facilities, all without ratepayer or taxpayer subsidies. In Alberta, we've allowed the market to determine the fuel mix, and we haven't tried to impose policy that favor one fuel, be it gas, coal, nuclear, wind, over another fuel. And people always ask, and politicians always think about, what's the impact on this choice for Albertans? It means that Albertans, collectively through the government, no longer carry debt for our utilities. This sets us apart from others in Canada. A 2014 study by the London Economics International on provincial utility debt found that Ontario carries $44 billion of debt and British Columbia $20 billion of debt for their electricity utilities. Alberta carries zero debt for electricity utilities. Over the past decade, our prices in Alberta have been competitive with other jurisdictions, qualifier, other jurisdictions that do not have access to abundant, cheap hydroelectricity.
We generators provide the system operator with offers of power to sell in terms of volume and what price we choose to offer it at. The system operator doesn't care about price. Its concern is meeting demand. It takes all offers from generators across the province, and this is an important thought here about the need for robust transmission, is that the power can only be sold if it has transmission to carry it. The more transmission you have that connects generators, the greater the market liquidity, the greater the sense of competition on price, the greater consumers benefit. Incidentally, generation tends to be the more expensive part of a power system as opposed to transmission. You want competition on the expensive part, the energy part, to lower the price as much as you can. Back to the ISO, they take the offers, rank them from lowest to highest, and all they're concerned about is ensuring there's enough volume to meet the prevailing demand. The plants up to $40 in this example are running to meet that demand of $82.50. The plant that offered too much is at the top of the stack. It does not run. It is not dispatched. It is idled. It cannot recover any of its costs if it's not dispatched by the ISO. So the incentive, then, therefore, the competitive tension occurs. If you want to be dispatched, you then try to lower your offer to the marketplace to beat the guy that's at $40. You offer $39 and bump him up. He's no longer dispatched. You're on at $39, and that's the competitive tension of Alberta's wholesale market. Forecast to 2050, and it shows a halving of our emissions intensity. That's the ton per megawatt hour of power we produced a halving of our intensity as we swap out our coal with gas on a baseload basis. This is tonnage. So it goes up as we still have coal, but then the coal units are retiring. So from 2013 to 2050, look at the two bookend dates. That's the forecast horizon of this study. Our tonnage is reasonably flat. This is even as our fleet is forecast to double from 2013. I submit to you that we're the only industry in this province that's going to double its capacity and keep its emissions at the same level. Doubling its size, emissions staying at 2013 levels because of the migration to gas and wind.
But we have some of the best renewable energy resources in the world. We have among the best onshore wind resources in the world, and it's not just in southern Alberta, which is traditionally where people think of, when they drive down through the Crow's Nest Pass, they see wind turbines, but there's good windy land all over the province. It's not just in wind. We also have the best solar resource in Canada. I think there's tremendous solar opportunities, and I think most people probably find this interesting that our solar resource in Alberta is comparable to the solar resource in Miami, Florida. The age of renewables is here, and that it could come from renewables. According to City, solar and wind are currently competing with fossil fuel generation based on cost. So I just want to clear any misconceptions that there may be out there. Renewables used to be a new technology, used to be a more expensive option, but that's no longer the case. Renewables are now cost competitive with our traditional sources of new power generation, primarily natural gas. And the nice thing about renewables is you don't have any fuel costs. So once you build a renewable power plant, you're not exposed to that volatility in power price as a result of commodity price volatility. There's obviously environmental benefits. Renewable energy is a clean source of electricity. There's no greenhouse gas emissions or other pollutions created. It's quite amazing if you think about it. You're actually creating electricity out of the thin air or creating electricity out of sunlight. It's an amazingly clean technology. And I really believe if we look at where Alberta's at today, we're under scrutiny for our perceived lack of environmental performance. And again, renewable energy is really the low-hanging fruit, I believe, to address the social license that we need to continue operating.
Okay, Alberta's steady growth. Obviously, over the last many years, we've been growing both on demand of electricity, population, 2 to 3% in the province consistently. Recognize we're in a bit of a stale here right now, but over the financial crisis, which was in the 08-09 period, we didn't slow down much at all. Things will pick up again. So as a result of that, transmission growth is very cyclical. What I'm showing you here is the annual investment in transmission since 1960. What happens is, back in the 60s to the 80s, we built a 240 kV network, 240,000 volts, a little more than the 120 at your plug. Build the intertie to BC. Then, as demand grows, that capacity gets used up. We're now in the next cycle of growth. We're building a 500 kV network now in the province, connecting renewables, dealing with low growth in the regions. That capacity will get used up into the future as demand grows. So as an engineer and with some in the room, I thought I'd show a few pictures to get across. We are building large infrastructure. This is big stuff. What you see here is the DC power line between Edmonton and Calgary that's in construction. The green stuff on the picture are insulators. What's hanging there is a dolly, and you can see a person, that's the orange person, in FR clothing. Gives you an idea of the magnitude of the size of what we're building. Takes special skills, special equipment. Here we're stringing that DC line. Down on the bottom you can see the conductor reels and the tensioning equipment, and you're pulling the conductor through those dollies to tighten and string and connect that transmission line. These are complex major projects. This is a DC converter station at the one terminal end of that DC line. It is a large industrial complex, about 200 acres, a $1.8 billion project. So this is big infrastructure that we're building, and it's a challenge. Just wanted to give a cost perspective quickly. 20 years, this is transmission rates from an ALTALINK cost perspective back to 1996 to today. Red is our cost. Blue is Alberta CPI. You can see for about 20 years, transmission rates have been very cost competitive against inflation in Alberta, and we're just now crossing that as we've gone into the next phase of the large infrastructure build that we're in to meet customers' demands.
So this picture here is just residential consumers in Alberta, and you often hear headlines and comparisons across the different provinces, and are consumers in Alberta better off? And this really just speaks to the point Donna made. You can see Alberta is all the way there on the left, and yes, we are not the cheapest electricity, but no public debt, and this truly represents the all-in cost of electricity to consumers in our province. The rest of the bars on this chart, some of them may look lower than Alberta, but there's a tremendous amount of public debt, and consumers actually pay for that through their taxes over time. The same thing for industrial, and in fact, industrial consumers here in Alberta have benefited even more. So when we talk about customers in Alberta, what are the customers? Well, we're all customers, but Alberta is a largely industrial and also commercial-based system. So of all the consumption of electricity you see in the big pie chart on the left, 17% of our electricity that's generated in Alberta goes to serve residential or households, whereas 55% are major industrial complexes, and I think we understand the industry here to understand where that's coming from, and 28% are commercial.
I've turned into a geek. There's an app called Megawatts Alberta. Megawatts Alberta. If you haven't got this on your phone and you love electricity, there is something the matter. It's just fantastic. It tells you where the electricity is coming from this second. It's just amazing. It shows you the intertie lines. Megawatts Alberta, 99 cents.
Those of you who took Donna up on the offer to look at Megawatts AB, which is on my phone as well, you'll see that the power plant, it's called Shepherd Energy Center, and it is generating electricity as we speak today.
So there are other markets that have elements of deregulation that have implemented what's called a renewable portfolio standard, or an RPS. It's the most widely adopted policy to encourage renewables in North America. There's more than 30 states in the United States that have an RPS. And basically what an RPS is it sets a requirement for a certain percentage of the power that gets consumed in the jurisdiction to come from renewable sources. So I think in Alberta, we could set a target of 20% renewables by 2020, 25% by 25, 30 by 30. I think that's something that's achievable. But it would still be compatible within a deregulated power generation market. You could still use competitive forces to achieve it. It's something that's proven in other parts of the world. Quite honestly, I'm shocked that Alberta hasn't done it so far. And just from my perspective, if California didn't have a renewable portfolio standard, we wouldn't have a third of the wind that we currently have in Alberta today that my company developed.
You're adding capacity that the market wouldn't normally warrant, plus you're picking the type of capacity. You're saying, okay, consumers, you have the opportunity right now to choose green power. Let's make them buy it. We're going to put in an RPS. We're going to charge them for the premium that energy may have over market price.
So you have these peak times. That's when you have to go further up into that stack, turn on more power plants, and then the price goes up. So should we pay more during that period of time than, say, the middle of the night? And that's been looked at. It's been in place in a number of jurisdictions. What studies have found in locations that have done that, they do find that people alter their consumption pattern. I mean, when you have a price signal and you know that it's going to cost you more, and you can see how much it's costing you, then you start to alter sometimes your consumption pattern. Perhaps you do your laundry at a different time of day or over the weekend. But right now in Alberta, in most locations, we would have to put in a lot of technology first to be able to enable that. I think
If you could change anything about how the power system in Alberta works, what would it be?
If I had a magic wand, I'd want energy storage to be highly viable. Because as soon as we have that, we've got her made. Because right now you can't store electricity, and if we could do that, costs would be much cheaper. It'll get there, it's just a matter of time.
I agree with Dennis on energy storage. I think energy storage and renewables are actually two things that go hand in hand.
A round of applause, please, for everybody who participated. In lieu of speaker gifts, we will be making a donation to the Schulich School of Engineering Alumni Scholarship Fund in your honor. I'm also pleased to acknowledge and thank the following organizations for their generous sponsorships: JERA, Stantec, and the University of Calgary Vice President Research Office. So thank you for them. Finally, thank you for attending and participating in the 5th Annual Distinguished Speaker Panel. And I hope that you'll all be able to attend again next year. Thank you.